Hi, here's Etienne from SINA, the Social Innovation Academy, where we unleash the potentials of people from disadvantaged and difficult backgrounds to become social entrepreneurs. And many of our scholars, how we call them, um, used to never dare to dream to even one day fly, because many of them come from rural villages, living in poverty in Uganda and other African countries. So over the years, many have actually become quite successful social entrepreneurs and started to have opportunities abroad, within Africa and outside, and started to take the plane for the first time. And some even become almost frequent travelers. And over the years, we have seen quite a lot of challenges um, when people take for the first time a flight. And yeah, with this video, we want to give you some highlights, what are key things to consider, especially when you're flying out of Africa or within Africa for the first time, and yeah, what to consider and do and not do. So first of all, you need to have some travel documents. Sometimes it's not required, depending where you go. For example, within East Africa, going from Uganda to Tanzania, as a Ugandan, you might be able to travel with only kind of travel documents that you can get locally, but normally you need a passport. So make sure you have one, and that is something that, yeah, will not work without it, especially if you travel longer distances. It will be helpful to print your itinerary, like there's a code and where you're going and where you're stopping over and so on, so that you have that for your own record. But also, often you'll be asked at the entrance of the airport or when you check in to have that. So sometimes they might even give you trouble to let you into the airport, for example, in Uganda, if you don't have it printed. So have your itinerary printed. Then many countries require yellow fever vaccination. Even, for example, if you're coming from Uganda and you're traveling somewhere else where they don't need yellow fever, say the US or Europe, but you will come back to Uganda, so they will not potentially let you go without having a yellow fever vaccination, because when you come back, it is required. So just have it um, with you and proof of it. So you need a little booklet that proves that you have been vaccinated against yellow fever. And then there are many other travel requirements which also change a lot. That can be a visa. They will not let you fly if you don't have a visa for many countries. But also in COVID times and um, recent events globally, there will be some restrictions. Sometimes you might need to have a COVID test or so on. So check the requirements for the destination you're going, what you need to be able to enter the country, what you need to be able to leave the country. So check the official websites of the ministries of internal or foreign affairs of the respective countries, and then you'll be on the safe side to follow all the necessary requirements. Then, really, something that can help is for you to try to check in online, which normally opens up usually 24 hours before, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less. So on the website of the airline you're taking, there's normally a place where it says check in online, and there you need a booking reference, and that's normally a 7-digit code, like the one displayed here. And typing in that and your last name, your surname, you'll be able to check in. Depending on where you're going, if you need a visa, sometimes you need to upload documents about the visa. Sometimes they might not allow you to check in because they want to check your visa requirements in person on the airport. But often you can check in online, and that will make things a bit easier when you go to the airport. So it might be a good idea to just check in online if possible before. If not, you can do the check-in as well at the airport. And that's one of the key points. Unfortunately, over the years, we had already a few people who missed their flights because they came too late. If the departure time says 1 p.m., for example, that means at 1 p.m. the airplane is already taking off from the one-way and leaving into the air. So if you arrive 30 minutes before that, you'll not be able to enter that plane anymore because it has potentially already left its docking station and is already on the runway. So that's where the advice, international advice, is 3 to 4 hours before. With more complicated processes like COVID tests and so on, the more time, the better. but normally check-in starts at least 3 hours before the flight. So be there 3 hours before the flight at least, so you're on the safe side. Because many things can happen, from traffic jams, breakdowns, car has a problem, to something is missing, needs to be checked and verified for your visa, for the travel destination. Then going through security takes time. Maybe they do some extra screening because found liquids in your bag or something. There is many, many, many reasons why it can take a long time. If everything goes perfect, you don't need 3 hours, but always, almost always, something will not work out perfectly. So 3 to 4 hours before is best. And if you not make it 1 hour before, at least you'll not even be able to check in because that's when they close. Because you need at least 1 hour to go through the passport control, the security control, and so on. So make sure to really be there 3 to 4 hours before on the in the airport to be on the safe side. Something else to note is on your travel itinerary, the times are usually displayed in a 24-hour format. So 13:00 means 1 p.m. and that can be a bit confusing. Unfortunately, we already had someone from Sina who traveled, and on the way back, she thought the departure time says 1. She thought it is 1 p.m., but actually it was 1 a.m. So when she went to the airport in the morning, a few hours before 1 p.m., she realized, oh, actually the flight had already gone long time before because it was at 1 a.m. So make sure that you reach the times correctly. And normally 1 is 1 a.m. and 13 is 1 p.m. So do not miss your flight like it happened before. For the security check, it's nothing so scary, but normally you're only allowed to have one bag as a carry-on. Everything else has to be checked in, which is no problem. The airline will inform you on normally your travel itinerary if you are able to carry no bags or one bag or two bags that can be checked in like a suitcase. And then you can have hand luggage, which usually can have up to 8 kilos that you can carry with you. So carry everything you need with you, like laptop or books to read if it's a long journey, or any medication and so on. But you cannot carry with you any liquids um, or any sharp objects. You can have small bottles up to 75 milliliters, which is really small, of creams like body cream, toothpaste, and so on, but no liquids. So no drinks and so on. You will have to throw that away at the security check if you have it, and no sharp objects so that you cannot use them as a weapon or harm anyone. So if you do have any sharp objects, make sure to remove them before, otherwise they will be thrown away at the security check. Another important point, stopovers and technical stops. Stopovers are where you have to change the planes. So traveling from Europe to Uganda, normally, or there's no direct connection from many countries. So you pass via, for example, Istanbul, Turkey, or Egypt, or Qatar. So you have a stopover there. You fly from one place to, let's say, Istanbul, and there you get out of the plane, you enter the airport, you might have to go through a security check again, and then after you find another gate where your next plane is going to your final destination. For stopovers, make sure as well to be at the gate early enough, not 3 or 4 hours before, but at least 45 minutes before, because again, the process of going into the airplane takes time and so on, and it leaves at the time it is specified. So be there again early enough at the gate, which is the place where you enter the airplane. Otherwise, stopovers, just look at the screens for where your flight is going and find it, and it will tell you the gate, let's say C25, and then you follow the signposts to reach to C25, and there you could wait until it's time for entering the plane. However, there's also sometimes technical stops. So many planes coming or airlines coming from Europe to Uganda, for example, stop over in either Kigali, Rwanda, or even Bujumbura, Burundi, and you might want to go to Entebbe, Uganda, but your plane now is landing in Kigali, and don't get off there. If your final destination is Uganda, then the plane stops there, but you don't have to get off. You just wait in the plane they're also announcing that, and then you can continue until Uganda, and there you get off. However, sometimes also Uganda might not be the final destination, and the plane, similar to the example before, might continue somewhere else. So there's, for example, flights that come from Nairobi to Uganda and then continue onward somewhere else. And unfortunately, we already had one of senior members who fell asleep on the plane and then didn't realize that the plane had landed in Uganda, in Entebbe, and stayed there. And the plane continued and actually traveled up to Central African Republic. And that's where he woke up and found himself in Central African Republic. And then it was kind of a nightmare process to, yeah, negotiate with the airline what happens now, because of course he had to come back to Uganda because he didn't want to be in Central African Republic. So make sure that you get off at the right stops because the plane might also continue somewhere else. And it might be helpful to set an alarm if you know when the plane is supposed to arrive and you know maybe it's at night or maybe you're sleepy, that you just set an alarm to make sure that you get up off at the right stop and don't find yourself in a strange country you didn't want to be at. So final maybe point, which also happens unfortunately quite a lot, that luggage doesn't arrive. So when you check in, you normally get a small sticker stuck to either your passport or to your boarding pass that has a code that can be scanned, and the same code is put on your suitcase. Um, and that's the way how to identify your luggage. Now, if you have a stopover somewhere, your luggage might have gotten misplaced or came not on time and has gotten stuck somewhere. So that can happen quite often, unfortunately, especially traveling in Africa. So, but normally it's not a problem. Um, when you arrive, you pass normally through the passport control, and then there's the belts where the luggage is coming out. So they're putting them from the planes onto that belt, and then you can collect yours. Now, if yours doesn't come after a long time, um, well, first make sure that it's the right belt. If it is a bigger airport, there might be different belts, and we have already seen people who were waiting for a long time for their luggage, but they were waiting at the wrong belt. So make sure it is the right belt that says your flight or where you're coming from. But if it still doesn't arrive, then there's normally no problem. Go to the counter where you can claim for missed luggage and talk to them. They will take up your case and then take your details and will track down your suitcase and normally deliver it to you, or you can come back to the airport and pick it up when it has arrived. Normally a day later, maybe 2 days later. So it might also be a good idea to have something in your hand luggage to bridge 1 or 2 days if you arrive, like a toothpaste, maybe some changing clothes, underwear, and so on, since that happens quite frequently, that if it happens to you, you have something to, yeah, go by with for the first few days after arrival, and you don't have to be buying new things. So, yeah, with that, I hope that is helpful. If there's any other tips you have, maybe you can also leave a comment below. Otherwise, I wish you safe journey and enjoy flying. It can really be a wonderful experience. And take care. All the best.